Okay, now I'm recording.
That's fine.
Let's get recording on Zencaster. And let me, hang on, I'm just going to have to point this at myself. Can you hear that?
Not really, no.
Okay, well, hopefully I can
Yes.
edit it up.
Just kidding.
Okay, I was like, fuck. Okay, let me just close.
Hey, did you get the Gul'dan thing from last episode where I sent the whole sales pitch for the whole sales pitch that Gul'dan had?
I haven't.
I also
I've not done anything.
no, but I also I also like timestamped it so that the video begins with that.
Oh, cool. So I can just.
Yeah.
Shut up, bird. Okay. How's that? Hello. Okay. Oh, what am I doing? Him. Are we gonna? I don't want to say we'll be looking at high elves. I'm just gonna be looking at lots of elves.
We'll be
looking at high elves and their offspring.
Okay.
High elves and
they're ripoffs.
And associate, yeah. And
Okay.
what became of them?
Okay.
Because there's no such real thing as high elves anymore. Just so that you're aware, it's like high elves aren't a thing anymore. It's now official canon, like void elves and blood elves. There's no such thing.
What about the blue eyes that joined the horde? Wouldn't there still be high elves?
Yeah, they're high elves.
But they're blood elves.
Just blood elves now.
I guess. Yeah. I guess blood elves just a title. So.
Yeah. I'm sorry. It's just that this is so polarizing in the community that I feel both sides like yeah. Sorry.
I'm choking here. Welcome to the Aspects of Lore, the podcast where we take a topic from the world of Warcraft and give you the aspects behind the lore. I'm your host, Rich. That wasn't what I meant to say.
Read it.
Let me try again. This is what happens when I don't drink alcohol when we're recording. This is sober.
You're not sure you're rich?
What?
You're not sure? Who are you?
I know I'm rich, but I didn't say that sentence properly. Because I added in the World of Warcraft because I wanted that to be in there. And then I didn't change the rest of it properly. The topic from the World of Warcraft, the aspects of lore behind that topic. Yeah, there we go. Welcome to the Aspects of Lore, the podcast where we take a topic from the World of Warcraft and give you the aspects of lore behind that topic. I'm your host, Rich, and with me today we have Rubber Rory.
Heyo.
And Uthos.
What's up?
Scrappy can't be with us today, I'm afraid, but hopefully he'll be back for the next episode. Today, we'll be looking at the Void/High Elves, how they fit into the existing lore, and what they will contribute potentially to future lore. We are gonna take quite a deep dive into this one, actually. So if you want to hear anything more, if you have anything to say about the Blood, Void, or High Elves, which I'm sure many of you will, drop us a line across to aspectsoflore@gmail.com. Or go to our website, aspectsoflore.com, click on contact, and send us an email from there. So today we're starting with the Void Elves. So Wowpedia notes that their origins lie with a group of Blood Elves led by Magister Umbric, who were exiled from Shadowmoon City because of their research into the Void. They were transformed by Void Ethereals, but rescued by Illyria Windrunner, who had gained mastery of the Void herself on Argus. Permanently transformed by the process, they pledged their loyalty to her and the Alliance, and established themselves as the Rendorai. The Void Elves seek to utilize their great but dangerous powers for the sake of defending Azeroth and the Alliance, and to prove those who doubt or judge their abilities wrong, all the while resisting the void's call to madness. They have the ability to metamorphose into a void form, and they are based in Telogris Rift. The race preview from Blizzard is as follows. Many have sought to harness the corruptive magic of the void. Most who tried have fallen into madness. Determined to use this power for the good of Azeroth, Illyria Windrunner is the first mortal to succeed at defying the Shadow's whispers. Coming to the aid of a group of her kin who nearly gave into the darkness, Illyria has vowed to train these Void Elves to control the shadows within them and pledge their newfound powers to the Alliance.
The race so nice they made it twice, huh?
Yes. A lot of people had a problem with this race at the beginning, but I don't think that there's a problem with the way it turned out. Not in the beginning, they didn't have any lore behind it, but now it's gotten quite a bit of lore, and with the customization options, it definitely gives them a lot more backstory.
I've always enjoyed them. They
look cool.
Yeah, they look cool as hell.
I think they're awful. They're probably my least favorite allied race.
Really?
Yeah.
More than
what? More than the Mechagnomes?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, you see, I kind of try to forget about the Mechagnomes, pretend they don't exist. So
it's unfortunate. They're monstrosities.
The Void Elves, however, are very real and very there. And there's a lot of people that want to play them. I don't know. Being a Horde fanatic as I am, they definitely seem like some traitors to me. I know Illyria brought her following of High Elves into it, but at the same time, there were Blood Elves that wanted to practice Ways of the Void when they're based in, the holy capital of Silvermoon. Like, I just don't get it. Like, how would, you dedicate a whole race, your whole life to a certain study, and then just so willingly join the Alliance, just so you can delve into, like, something that almost everyone on Azeroth knows is, like, a deep, maddening path to go.
Isn't this what Americans did in the British, though? The British wouldn't let them practice what they wanted to, so they left and went to America and started their own country.
That's
just
right.
Saying, you are a Void Elf, Rory.
Oh no.
No, you make good points, but so here's the thing: the Alliance people and the Blood Elf community, like the High Elf community, that's actually a community. They wanted Blood Elves to have joined the Alliance from the very beginning, and they wanted High Elves and High Elves and High Elves. That's the whole thing, and we'll get into that history. But Blizzard was very against doing that from the very beginning. So I think that their compromise was the Void Elves. They created a whole thing just for them, and then they gave a High Elf model to the Alliance. And at first, it was a problem because they weren't allowed to have normal skin colors. But with the customization options, and that also actually has lore connotations, that that's opened up the whole door for them. They so what happened with them is Illyria, when she was in Argus, she was able to siphon the complete power of Darken Naru, and she took it into herself, and it made her a Void Elf. So she's a High Elf with, I guess, a Void Elf physiology. They have a completely different physiology from the Blood Elves, the actual proper Void Elves, not Illyria. I don't know if Illyria does or not. I'm assuming she does, because she has all of the same powers as a Void Elf, which is going into Void form and all of that. But what they did with the proper Void Elves is the event where she did the whole Nightborn scenario, where she went to try to recruit the Blood Elves into the Alliance.
I remember that.
She fucked them up.
She did.
Sorry. She's awful. She's awful. She is such an awful character these days.
You don't like her?
No,
No, not at
You don't
all.
like the torture and
The void torture? No. Trying to turn the blood elves who have fought beside the horde for so long against their own. Like,
well,
I
the high
just
elves will say that they should have always stayed with the alliance, that they turned their backs on the alliance.
yes.
sure the racist alliance that used them as cannon fodder. Yeah, why don't we
I
team up with them
agree.
again?
I did that recently because we're gonna do Arthas, and so it forced me to play all of Warcraft 3, and I saw how vicious the alliance was to them. So I
It's just the
understand.
humans. The humans are horrible.
Lorthamar put it very well that the alliance's racism is why the horde exists. Back in Mist of Pandaria, this was his exact
No,
quote.
I agree. No, and also I have to tell you that it's not specifically the alliance. It's the human nobles were awful. The human nobles were awful from Warcraft 3 all the way up through Classic. They were just terrible, terrible people. The whole nobility class of Stormwind, they should all just be like, they should do like a French Revolution with those people. Because no, they should. They are responsible for all of the racism that the Alliance has. And they're also responsible for why the Alliance of Lordaeron broke up.
Mm.
I mean, the nobility were the ones that wanted the orcs to be exterminated instead of put in internment camps. So it's not like
the dwarves are pretty
this doesn't
racist
allow-
too. I know we're not talking about them, but just want to throw that out.
the
They're pretty
dwarves have somewhat of racism, but I mean, they allowed the gnomes in. They are friendly with the humans, so I don't know.
I mean, against horde, like they absolutely hate trolls.
The only thing that I like
They
about the
have
alliance,
regulars
really,
for
like
that.
I said, is Stormwind City
All right.
and
fair
Well-
and the garrison. I really enjoyed my garrison. I thought it was beautiful.
So you were the one. Okay, that's cool. I was wondering who they were making that for. No,
all for you.
So, I'm glad.
I
to
enjoyed
finally
that.
figure
I thought
out.
it was good.
No, a few people did. There's a handful of people. Okay, so the thing is, when Illyria went to speak to Lorthamar, and she was like basically saying, "Listen, we want you to like join the alliance," and he was like cutting her
He's
off
not
right away,
having it,
saying,
yeah.
"Like, no, like I'm not even going to listen to you right now. I'm talking to my bae right here." And she's way more important than you are. So, like, you
I
need
do
to,
agree with that, though.
what you
is.
need to do is you need to get all the way off my back and let me focus on the Nightborn. And so, and they were playing politics hardcore. Like, they weren't even like trying to hide it. They got together, and that's the one thing I appreciate about the Blood Elf nobility. They get together, and when they set their mind to do something, they focus wholeheartedly on that one thing. And they're very good at politics. That's what they're known for.
Yeah.
So Liadrin, Lorthamar, and Ramoth were all about getting the Nightborn in. That Auric guy, like, I don't know that he knows what's going on because he spends way too much time in the woods. But let Sunchaser is just all the way over there. He's barely involved.
Just doing his own
But
thing.
pretty much. So then they were focused on bringing the Nightborn in. Illyria kind of read the room, and she was just like, all right,
I got it.
See you later.
they're not feeling me right now. So you know what? Let me just take a look at the Sunwell before I go and whatever. And as soon as she goes to the Sunwell, a void entity forms, because remember, the Sunwell was formed with the dead heart of a void Naru.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the Sunwell was purified. And so Velen like purified the Sunwell, and they have this kinship towards the light. But the minute that Illyria walked in, a void creature came out of the Sunwell. They defeated that with the help of the Nightborn, and they were going to arrest Illyria. And she was like, "Oh, hell no, that's not happening." And she just like goes away. She goes down to the Ghostlands, I believe, and she meets up. Well, she finds she's a good tracker, I guess, because she's a ranger. She meets up with Magister Umbrick and his group of blood elves that are researching the void.
These geeks.
Hey.
Now the Umbrick is researching the void because of everything that happened in the past with the corruption of the Sunwell, by Arthas, and we'll, I'm sure, go into that. And then they were looking for an alternate power source to sate their addiction. Now, I said in we talked about the Nightborn's like thing for their addiction in the Nightborn episode.
So long ago.
Yeah, I know. The Nightborn wasn't cured from their magical addiction. All elves are still addicted to magic. To this date, no elf or naga has been able to cure themselves of this addiction. The fruit from the Arkandor cures them from becoming Nightfallen, but they still have the withdrawal for the magic addiction. And
You said
that's
that, didn't
only
you,
if
Rory?
Huh?
You said that, didn't you?
He said something
I
along
said-
those lines, yeah.
I did. But
I mean,
I mentioned
feel
that.
it should be
I
noted
guess
that
I
there's
did
no
use
cure.
Yeah, I used the word cure a bit. I should have meant like sustained. Would have been a better
Yeah.
clarification.
Well, they still feel the withdrawal.
All
from
elves.
their
Night
magical
elves.
addiction. All elves. Night elves have a workaround, but those night wells have arcane power in them.
Yeah.
So for them
Yeah.
to say that they're not addicted to magic, like those night wells are pretty much like the same thing. To overcome their addiction, they would have to go through the withdrawals, and unfortunately there hasn't been one that has completely been cured of it. Now, the high elf purist will say that the high elves were able to be cured of the magical addiction. That isn't true. No high elf has ever been cured of their magical addiction. In fact, the ones who tried in the Queldelin Lodge in Highvale, as soon as a magical artifact came in close to them, and they had been abstaining from tapping into any magic, as soon as an artifact came around them, they all went for it and siphoned it and became the wretched from like the Blood Elf starting zone.
Uh-huh.
So to this day, we haven't had a successful like curing of, and which isn't to say that they won't. Just we haven't.
Who
yet.
thinks the void would be a better why would the void be better than arcane? Like what
the
logic
assumption. Well, the assumption that Magister Umbrick, and this hasn't been confirmed in game, but the assumption that Magister Umbrick feels is that the void would be a better alternate power source than the Sunwell because it would cure their addiction to magic. Just like the light softens their addiction, that makes it easier to go through. The void could equally, just being one with the void would take away their addiction, but that also brings the void voices in your head. So that comes along with a whole other, that's a whole other thing. So would you want to be addicted to magic and have those like heroin like pangs to like, I need magic, or would you want to like be half crazy and like hear voices? It's all a matter of personal.
And I don't think it was unreasonable for them to exile the few that wanted to dabble with the void. Like this was a holy city. There, like we saw, as we stated earlier, what happened when Illyria stepped a little close to it. So like to practice such a thing and like that kind of city, like
completely get it.
Yeah,
they were exiled and Illyria found them, and they were messing with powers that they just didn't understand, and Illyria knew that they were messing with those powers. They found a box or something that contained an ethereal that when they opened the box, the ethereal tried to, I kind of remember the event, but the event was that they were trying to siphon the box, and that unlocked the box, which were going to turn them all into ethereals if it wasn't for our hero and Illyria to stop it.
Hero.
They would have been all ethereals. So our hero Illyria stopped the event from completing. So they're essentially half ethereal, and half blood elf. They bleed purple. So when you cut them, they don't bleed red anymore. They bleed purple blood. They have a completely different physiology. They are all blue from this event, but they remembered how politically they were members of the alliance, and they disagreed with Lorthamar's decision to join the Horde.
What? Well, no. These blood elves, like I think, like yeah, half of them are high elves that originally didn't want to join the Horde. There's still a good chunk that
no. We're not going to go into the high elves. I haven't gone into the high elves yet.
I was just saying,
what was elves.
Who were members of the Void Elves? Some of them were. Well, I guess it's clarified up now, because
right.
Yeah. But at the same time, there are Blood Elf traders.
They were exiled. They were exiled. They didn't want to. The society didn't want them, so they had no reason to want to be part of the society if the society didn't want them. And another avenue opened to them, and they needed protection. They knew what happened in High Vale it wasn't High Vale. It was in Eastern Plaguelands. There was a group of blood elves who were exiled from the Blood Elf Society because they were high elves and that whole thing. And what happened was Nathanos attacked them. That was part of the Horde questing experience in Eastern Plaguelands, and the Horde attacked them and killed them all. So when Lorthamar saw that, he had feelings about that. Those people knew what happens to you when you get exiled from the Blood Elf Society. You're open to be attacked by the Horde. So they needed to have protection. So they joined the Alliance as a way to get some sort of protection. That's why they went with Illyria. And also Illyria knows about the Void. Nobody else knew about the Void but Magister Umbric and Illyria. So they both understood the Void.
I guess that's fair enough, but the only last shred of doubt I have towards that again is how willing they were able to I don't know if it was an addiction or the madness, but how willing they were. I think they knew the risk with dabbling with the Void and Silvermoon, and they still decided to go through with it. But
they were the only ones that were willing to do that.
I just don't understand, out of common sense, who would decide. I think consuming the Fel, allowing that in makes more sense than the Void. Yeah, I mean, because
they were also very much against the Fel. So they saw that was that's also part of the disagreement with the philosophies and the politics. They saw where Kael'thas was taking the Blood Elves, and they disagreed with that. So they were already against the politics. The only thing is they didn't have any alternative. So they were forced to stay under Theron.
And
they saw how they were bringing Naru and keeping him secluded underground, and siphoning light out of him, and they were like, oh, okay, these people have gone Coco for Coco. We're just gonna go over here and focus on the Void, and we're gonna see if we can master the Void and try to figure it out. And if we can find an alternate power source, this Fel thing isn't going to work out. God knows if Light knows if Kael'thas is going to bring back any sort of power source for them to siphon. They're bringing energon cubes. That's all they have right now.
I guess I'm just a little butthurt because a main philosophy of WoW was
a lot.
Void is bad. A little. Void bad, Light good.
That was
now
the
recently,
and I was part of that philosophy, because remember, I rolled a Draenei Priest, and I was 100% for the Light up until Zira.
Yeah.
And her little rapey.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Now
I was like, whoa.
It's seeming like there's definitely two sides of the story now here.
I was even for the Light through the through the whole Scarlet thing. Like I was 100% for the light, even seeing what the Scarlets did with the light.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until Zero that I was like, oh well, this is just a tad too far.
Yeah.
But I also see that the light can be manipulated, like what Illyria is doing with it, and what Benedictus did to it. So I saw that the light could be manipulated.
Yeah. I don't know. It was a fun philosophy to back behind. It was just another little
But you're
enemy.
also trading in. You're trading in the dependency on magic with the voices. And so then they come back to Stormwind. And the high elves that are left in the Alliance are like, look at that. That's possibilities for us. So they start, flocking. The ones who like are interested in the void start flocking to the void elves, and they go into the rift, and they start looking at what they can research with that, and even some more blood elves start going into the rift and seeing what they could come up with. So they're trying to create more void elves after they come and join the Alliance. You see a lot of scholars from Silver Moon there, and you see high elf scholars trying to figure out the void as well. So they're actively trying to create more. And Shadowlands, you see
I think
that
it's just
they
weird
achieve
grounds to join the Alliance. That's all. To change your complete faction. Like I understand wanting to delve into something that would sedate your addiction.
They already had disagreements with their faction. They didn't agree with what Kael'thas was doing. They didn't agree with them joining the Horde, and they didn't agree with
Oh, sorry. I meant the
exiling
Blood
them.
Elves that joined, not the High Elves. My bad. Because
The Blood Elves that joined the Alliance are only interested in researching the Void, and the Blood Elves that are in the Horde have no appetite for that. So it's not like they can research the Void for the Blood Elves. They have to research the Void for the Alliance because the Blood Elves won't allow them. Yeah, they won't allow them in if they dabble in Void. It also draws a line in the sand. If you want to worship the light, you're a Blood Elf. If you want to worship the Void, you're a Void Elf.
I get yeah.
What are you saying, Rich? For the Blood Elves that did betray the Horde and go across, their magic addiction must be driving them crazy. And if they have the slightest glimmer of hope that by exchanging this thirst and this need for some voices in your head, I mean, if they're going over to a different faction, there must be a real intense drive there. Like something must. I've never suffered with magic addiction myself, but I can only imagine that it's really.
Oh, I've heard it's bad. I've heard it's supposed to be like excruciating pain. I can only imagine it being the comparison to heroin because the way that everything is described, that I've dealt with a lot of people that have been addicted to heroin, and the way that it's described in the lore and the way that the heroin addiction is described to me is just pretty much the same. And I don't know if that's the intention that Blizzard's going on, but that's the feeling that I get when I read it. There's nothing else that describes it that well.
I can kind of speak from experience, not heroin-wise, but I was addicted to painkillers. I didn't realize that I was. I didn't realize that I was. This sounds ridiculous, but I had an abscess on my tooth, and my mom gave me some tramadol, which in the States is called something really bad.
Oxycontin?
Maybe. I can't remember what it's called. It's different. It's now coming to the States. It's like
codeine.
Kind of.
Okay.
It's really, really strong. It's a what are they called? Narcotic. So it was the only thing that could basically numb the pain from that, and I ended up taking that. And I suffer from anxiety, and this is before I was diagnosed. And I started to realize I would take it to go to sleep.
More and more.
And
Yeah,
it was literally it removed all of my anxiety instantly. And I ended up being just taking it for like 6 months. I was just taking it constantly. And then I realized that I couldn't sleep without it. And I got really panicked, and I ended up stopping it cold turkey. And I did get the withdrawals from it. And it was horrendous. The amount of pain I was in and just wanting to like throw up. Oh my God, it was awful.
Your body actually creates more pain to get you to take it. It's really weird how it works.
Stupid.
And the way that I've spoken to people who've been like recovering addicts and stuff like that, which I deal with because of my job, the way they explain to me is that their body starts feeling pain in order for them to take it. That's their brain's way of getting them to take more of that. So
I can understand that.
Yeah.
Like
so that's the description also in the lore.
Yeah. So as a that kind of understanding that side of things, if I was a void elf, I would be like, no. I don't want to take this shit anymore. I don't want to have to deal with taking tramadol every night to go to sleep. If I have to have a voice in my head, so be it. I don't want to turn into a withered. I don't want to turn into wretched. I want to be myself. And if I have to hear someone talking to me in my mind, but I've got Illyria Windrunner to guide me through how to deal with that, I will go on that route instead.
Yes, and that's also why you see a lot of monks being void elves too, like because that's also about the discipline.
I have a max level void elf monk. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. That's they're all about disciplining and figuring out their.
Guess the Arcane Anonymous meetings aren't just doing it anymore, huh?
Right. So the thing is that they've achieved getting more because of the customization options. They have successfully brought in high elves into the ranks of the void elves.
So what are high elves?
Aren't willing.
What are high elves?
Sorry, I just wanted to segue into it.
All right. The high elves, or Quel'Dari, which means children of noble birth in Darnassian and Thalassian, are a race descended from the night elf highborn who left Kalimdor and settled in the eastern kingdoms founding Quel'Thalas. The high elves were once a significant force on the continent, but in recent times their numbers have been dramatically reduced. Approximately 90% of their population was slaughtered during the Third War. Following this, 90% of the surviving high elves changed their name to the blood elves, or Sindarai. And just to clarify, that 90% was mostly wiped out when Arthas invaded, I believe.
Arthas. Okay, so let's backtrack to what you were saying.
Yeah.
The lowborn had a revolution. They kicked out all of the highborn from the Night Elf Society.
Yeah.
So you had four notable groups. 1, 2, 3, 4 notable groups.
6.
No, 4.
Sorry.
The one that immigrated to the Dire Maul area, right? Those are the proper highborn. The ones that went to Northrend and emigrated to Crystal Song Forest, and they had a problem with the Blue Dragon flight. They're dead up there. They've been extinct.
Yeah, they blew up. Like that's why that place is a crystal now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The ones who barricaded themselves in Suramar,
who are they?
They're the ones that turned into Nightborn. But
well, actually, those guys were
also a group right outside of Suramar who were cursed. So I guess 4.5 notable groups, because the Court of Farandris, the Court of Farandris were high elves, but they were cursed by Ashara to never be able to die.
So the highborn in Suramar, though, they were bubbled off before the war was even ended, like before the Sundering.
They saw the writing on the wall.
Yeah, they kind of knew. Like,
Thesis.
I think they decided to wall them. This is my speculation. I think they decided to wall themselves off when Malfurion had the battle with Savius in the War of the Ancients, because he created such a powerful storm that the entire land felt it. Like,
Want to get your
everybody
bird,
felt it.
Rich?
Can you hear it?
Oh,
I
yeah.
can hear it, it's fine.
Oh, fuck.
It's fine.
No,
I
it's
just wanted
not.
to know if you were doing.
No, it's not fine.
It's not fine.
It's absolutely
Well, if you are going to cover the bird, you might as well leave the door open the window, and get yourself some cross breeze if you're going to cover him.
We just hear like over the mic.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, Rich. What I told you about.
Roasted parakeet for dinner tonight.
Jeez. Oh, I tried that honey olive oil you recommended on the parrot. It's delicious.
Yeah.
Did he get it? It's quiet now.
Yeah, it's very quiet.
Too quiet.
It's too quiet.
Rich,
Leave
what are
the
you
door
doing?
open.
Michi said he'll cook him for you. He's got a
Open
nice
the door, open
Japanese
the
recipe.
window.
No, I've wrapped him. It's fine.
Bird and fish sushi.
If you
God,
wrap
it's
them,
so
you
hot.
open the window.
No.
Yeah, open the window.
No, 'cause then
now
if
you
there's-
leave the door open.
I don't know if the thunderstorm's gonna roll in, and then there's gonna be like
If it does roll in, we'll be fine. It's not a magnet. Are you kidding me?
I
That's not
care
how
because I have
science
to.
works.
I have to edit
Because
it.
science.
I don't have to,
No,
but I'm
it's not
going to
gonna-
edit it.
No,
All
it'll
right.
be fine.
I'm
I
fine. I'm
promise
fine.
you,
I'm
the
fine.
thunderstorm
I'm fine.
isn't doing it.
Let's carry on.
Okay.
Carry
Alright,
on.
So yeah, the
One-
90%. Or sorry, what were you?
So
gonna-
wait, we were talking about, okay, so the one group of highborn that went down there, the other group of highborn that went up there, then the one that stayed in Saramar barricaded themselves right probably when they saw the writing on the wall that there was
Oh,
instability.
time out.
No, sorry. Yeah. Can we just stop for like 5 seconds and then go into the next part? That'll make
Oh,
things
just
a
so-
But
lot
I'm just trying to
easier for
remember
me.
where we were on.
I know, but like once you
You were
figure it
just
out,
talking about the group that Ajara cursed in
Okay.
the Broken Isles. Valandris, right? Okay, pause. Sorry.
No. I said thumbs up.
All right, Ferandris, the court of Ferandris was outside, and the Ashara cursed them. The Ceramarians, they bubbled themselves probably when Ashara prevented anybody from using the Well of Eternity, and Malfurion did that fight with Xavius that caused an eruption that everybody could feel and hear. That would have been the time when this Ceramarians were like, let's just count on this artifact that we have instead of going to the well, and they barricaded themselves in.
Yeah.
Or around that time. It had to be around that time.
Mhm.
Then the other group were the Sunstriders, that the group under the Sunstriders that went to they first landed in Tirisfal, and they heard the whispers of the old god minion there at the bottom of under Tirisfal. Then they were like, you know what, we're not going to stay here. Let's go up north. Because this is really spooky. They should write a scary short story, like Madeline Rue.
It was Zakaj or whatever. Zakaj. He was old god servant for Yogg Saron. He was under Tirisfal, given the
Right,
whispers.
but
yeah.
But it's also like strange things were also happening around there. So
Yeah.
it's not just like the whispers; it's also like the people were going a little crazy. So they should write like a nice short story about those blood
Yeah.
elves in the middle of the woods with like crazy people like coming and attacking
I'd
them.
like
Anyway,
that. I'd read that.
that would be great. But anyway, they went up north to Quel'Thalas, and the only thing that was up there were the Imani trolls, so they could handle that. And they formed their city up there, and that's and then that's when they lived for 10,000 years, relative prosperity, with only having to fight the trolls.
Yeah.
And then Arthas came and attacked them and killed 90% of those people. Then they became the Blood
Cinder
Elves.
Eye. Yeah.
The Blood Elves worked with the Alliance
So the group
for
that
a good
went
amount
up-
of time.
The group that went up to Quel'Thalas, though, they brought the water from the Well of Eternity to make the Sunwell for them.
One of the 9 vials that Illidan had. You're right.
Yeah. So, and that's one of the reasons why Arthas came to attack in the first place, I believe.
Right.
Yeah, was to resurrect Kel'Thuzad,
Yes.
the Lich.
Goddamn
Yes,
Kel'Thuzad.
and
Yeah, that guy. Can't get
I
enough
wonder
of
if
him,
he'll
huh?
turn up again.
Oh, I'm absolutely sure
I
he
mean,
will.
come on. Most
I know
of
he
the
is.
most of the armor.
So yeah, so after 90% were wiped out, they named themselves the Sindorai, children of blood is what it means, in remembrance of their fallen brethren, and they no longer consider themselves High Elven. So the High Elves as a
10%
whole,
of them, 10% of them though, they were the high elves still, because it's not because they didn't agree with what Kael'thas was doing with in the beginning, where they were like, oh, we're gonna have revenge. It's just because the word didn't get to them that they were now blood elves. So they were in different areas, and the word hadn't gotten to them yet. And all the stuff that's going to transpire to the blood elves, they were relatively secluded, so they weren't really part of it. Like the ones in Darnassus, and the ones that Illyria took away, and the ones in High Vale. So those are the three prominent groups of high elven forces that we know of. And then go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, you're good. You're good. I was just, yeah, the High Elves as a whole were relatively secluded from the younger races for several millennia, though both the Troll Wars and the Second War saw relations established with them, with King Thoradin of the Kingdom of Erethdor and the Alliance of Lordaeron respectively. The High Elves' reluctant allegiance to the latter proved short-lived, as the High Elven King Anasterian Sunstrider quickly grew apathetic to the plight of his allies, and officially seceded his nation. Subsequently, yeah, the High Elven Kingdom.
That's why they left.
Yeah. The High Elven Kingdom was brought to the brink of annihilation when Prince Arthas Menethil launched the Scourge invasion of Quel'Thalas and decimated the High Elves.
Bye-bye.
Yep. So as we were just discussing.
It's the opposite of decimation, to be honest with you. They say decimated. Decimated is 1 in 10 people die. And here it's 9 in 10
90%.
people died.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's the
Almost
complete
extinction.
opposite of decimation. Yeah.
Annihilation.
It's a genocide. It's a genocide.
Yeah. So that's when Kel'Thas Sunstrider. That's when Anasterian Sunstrider died, and Kel'Thas Sunstrider took over.
Right. That's when they became blood elves.
Yeah. So rallied by Lorthamar Theron,
Yay.
second in command of the fallen Sylvanas Windrunner, who put up one hell of a fight trying to fight back
Right.
Arthas.
So here's where I'm gonna interject and say this is the Alliance perspective, because Rory's not gonna understand this.
Oh.
So the way that their command structure works is that the Ranger General is supposed to be in charge, the second in command of the and the second in line to lead. Now they have their form of government is by bloodline, and then if the bloodline falls, then they go into their nobility that takes over. Obviously, that's the way it is in all monarchies. So the Sunstrider bloodline was to lead. Then the second in command, which would be like, I guess, essentially like the Secretary of State or the head of the government, is the Ranger General. That position was offered to the second noblest bloodline, which is the Windrunner bloodline. And so it was offered to Illyria first. She turned it down. She became a Farstrider, which is the same-ish thing as the Ranger Generals, but they did their own thing, and they didn't have to subscribe to the rules of the kingdom, which wouldn't have allowed her to marry Turallion. So no matter what, she went apart and did her own thing. She didn't want to be Ranger General, so she gave it to Sylvanas, the second in line, as her younger sister. Now Sylvanas made a deal with Anasterian to put in Lorthamar as her second in command. There has to be a lineage.
Yeah.
Right? And so nobody knows why Anasterian chose Theron as her second in command, but I know that they had a problem with her being with Nathanos and wanting Nathanos to be a Farstrider. So this is my personal speculation, is that there had to be some sort of political back and forth. Like, if you let Nathanos be a Farstrider, then I'll put your boy Theron in a second in command, and we'll all be happy. Like, that's my personal headcanon. This isn't actual part of the game. But it makes sense where there would be some sort of noble negotiation between, who do you want? You want this guy to be the second command? That's fine. All right. Can I get my boy, this human, to be a Far Strider? It's like,
I guess.
all right, fine. So, because nothing gives you why he, who was against Nathanos being a Far Strider, changing his mind to Nathanos being a Far Strider afterwards, and then all of a sudden Theron is the second in command after that point.
Yeah.
It's a little bit weird. So whatever happens, Sylvanas dies in that war.
Yeah.
Theron becomes the leader, and then Anasterion dies, and Kael'thas becomes the leader. So now Theron is the second in command to Anasterion.
And Kael'thas.
Ilaria feels she should be the leader of the Blood Elves because she shouldn't have turned down the position of Ranger General. Had she not turned down the position of Ranger General, she would have been Queen of the Elves.
Yeah.
So in her mind, I agree. She has herself to blame for this. However, she feels now, in hindsight, and like her retconning history because she wasn't around. So like in her head, nothing that happened from the point of Arthas coming and taking all the way forward to her coming back actually happened in her head. It's like if you've ever worked a graveyard shift with a significant other, right?
Yeah.
You work all night long, and then you come home at 8 a.m. and you go to sleep at 8 a.m, and they come home from work at like 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. and they're like, you've done nothing all day but sleep. And you're like, yeah, but I worked all night. Like that should count for something, and I slept all day. So then you get grief for like not doing anything all day, when in reality you worked all night and they were asleep for that, and then whatever. So that's like what's going on here. She was away for all that time. She comes back and she's like, what the hell happened? Well, if I wouldn't have turned it down, I would have been able to do this. And so in her head, she feels justified in bringing the Blood Elves into the Alliance.
Yeah.
Without considering all of how everything that happened affected the Blood Elves themselves. So that's where we're at with that, and why Illyria feels like they shouldn't have done what they did, and the Blood Elves did what they did. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that was good collaboration into it. In fact, I didn't even. That's some new info from me.
Same.
So yeah, rallied by Lorthamar and Kael'thas Sunstrider, renaming themselves the Blood Elves in honor of their perished. The Blood Elves sought to unite and restore their people to the glory they enjoyed at the height of High Elf civilization, and have retaken much of their land from the Scourge. However, a few High Elves did not rename themselves the Blood Elves. High Elves and Blood Elves are physiologically the same race, and the difference between High and Blood Elves is only political. When
Yes.
Quel'Thalas left the Alliance, some High Elves chose to remain with their allies over the kingdom, and to this day still support the Alliance. Some High Elves were exiled from Quel'Thalas after the Third War. Other High Elf remnants have chosen to rejoin the Alliance in recent years, arriving to a cold reception. Modern High Elves are a rare sight.
Right, because the humans are racist. Yeah, the humans are still racist.
Death Knight?
Like,
ew, get out of here! I'm gonna throw a rotten apple at you. Where do these fucking rotten
they
apples
still
come?
like don't like
Horde
anything
did
that
that
isn't
too.
human or
Oh,
dwarf.
yeah, true.
Those were Death Knights, man. Those people those were the people that slaughtered the 90%. I would throw an apple myself, like,
We need
Anyways.
Scrappy.
We need Scrap. No, we'll bring it up to him. But yeah, modern High Elves are a rare sight and are commonly mistaken for Blood Elves. In consequence, there are very few High Elves left on Azeroth today. High Elves did not gather in any significant numbers and are a very small group of individuals. Indeed, modern High Elves cannot even truly be said to have a culture, only a past filled with glory and regret.
That's
As a
sad.
Yeah. I mean,
But
they're out of the loop.
Really
Should have
sad
joined the
to be-
Horde. Should have joined the Horde,
No, because then they'd have to give up their blue eyes. Oh wait, never mind.
not now.
Yeah. Not now. See, some of them chose the right direction. As a people,
well.
the High Elves are all but extinct. The remnants of a fallen race. Through without any official leader, Varisa Windrunner leads one of the few organized High Elf collaborations, the Silver Covenant, as its self-styled Ranger General.
I like Varisa.
Yeah, she's pretty cool, I guess. Out of all the Windrunner sisters,
She's my favorite
She
Windrunner
doesn't
sister.
do anything.
Yeah.
No, she just
It's kind
doesn't.
of like.
She's not a stupid bitch
Yeah.
like the
Well,
other
no,
two.
you know it's funny. It's funny because in Mystic Pandaria, she was all about killing blood elves. Like she was like,
Yeah, that's
"You
true.
die for what they did to my husband." And
Well,
she has those 2 monster children to raise too.
Yeah.
they're not monsters. Stop it.
Look at the comic book; they're monsters.
No,
Yeah.
they're just.
I
kids.
changed my mind. Thank
No,
you.
you don't like her.
Yeah.
I mean, you did explode the city and kill
Well,
Ronan.
yeah.
I didn't kill him. Garrosh did that.
Well,
No,
you
clearly-
you were on his
I
side.
actually think that the bombing of Theramore was fair play. To be honest with you, he announced it. He told Bane, and it specifically so Bane would tell Theramore. He did everything that he was supposed to as a military leader, and he let them gather there, and he made sure all the civilians were gone when he dropped the bomb. So it was
yeah.
a travesty, but it was a fair military fight. It was terrible what happened, but it was a fair fight.
Yeah.
It's just that the Alliance wasn't prepared for what he was going to do. Using a weapon of mass destruction, that was a little bit uncalled for.
Overkill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Sorry.
Eric Sunchaser, a captain of the remnants of Illyria's ranger cadre found in Terakar Forest, serves as the High Elven representative at the restored Sunwell in modern Quel'Thalas. So there's that
You don't
guy.
have to go into the history
So
of
that
the
takes
Blood
us
Elves. You
into
can
the Blood
skip
Elves.
down.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're not going to get into that whole. You pretty much read most of it, except for up to when the stuff that Kael'thas did. In BC, the stuff in BC. Let's see. Here we go. The Blood Elves drove to the Kael'thas, pressured his people on Outland. Here we go. So
Wait, where is this in the notes? Oh,
Oh.
okay.
all this out. There you go.
So from here, the Blood Elves strove to
Yeah.
rebuild.
Mhm.
Okay. Do we want to leave a little pause so Rich knows where to cut?
Yeah.
No. The Blood Elves strove to rebuild Quel'Thalas and reclaim much of their land from the Scourge. Kael'thas had assured his people that one day he would return to Quel'Thalas and lead them to paradise, yet time revealed that his promises were nothing more than lies. On Outland, the prince became twisted due to his reliance on fell energy, the dark and corrupting essence wielded by the demonic Burning Legion itself.
So, Rory, my question for you is, do you think that's a better idea than going with the Void?
I think because everyone knew what the Fell was, right? People either
point of
sided with the
perspective.
Fell or people sided with, the right side, I guess. But the Void has always been untouched, aside from like a few Shadow Priests. The Void was never really like seen as any means or instrument, like, because as far as we know, the Void had only its relations to the old gods, right?
To be
Classic,
fair,
yeah.
Old school Shadow Priests are different than Shadow Priests from Warlords of Draenor on. Just so we're on the same page, because I made a priest, and that was the point where I turned off the priest and went to the shaman. But the old type of Shadow Priest studied Shadow as a school of magic, just because studying Holy gives you only half the story. Studying Shadow is just a school of magic for that. It didn't go into like, I want to be crazy, like it did in Legion. That was a whole new thing that I did not agree with the priest. I was like, whoa, this is nuts. But at that point, that's when they started like, I want to be crazy. But in the beginning, they were just studying it like a school of magic, like you would study any other school of magic.
Yeah,
that's all they were doing. Yeah,
I see. Yeah, so
Okay,
I guess
sorry,
like
I was just wondering.
No, that's
you
a
felt.
fair question. I just think it would be more. I think I understood them turning to the Fell more than I understood them turning to the Void. Is what I should have said.
Well, from my
And also to
perspective,
regain their power.
well, I just think it's using the void because there's no research that's been done. They're wanting to do that research. So yes, people have used the Fel. They know what Fel does, but they don't know what the void does. So
Yeah.
why would they not want to explore that to find out,
Well,
is there a way of properly harnessing this?
sorry, we're gonna have to pause. Someone just tried to Discord me.
Okay.
So just telling them to shut the. Yeah, that's all. I understand now that we're seeing like a darker side of the light and a lighter side of the dark. So now, like, I can see now why people, like, more and more scholars are going into the void now that they've realized they can harness this kind of thing, and maybe, hey, it's not all bad, you know. But leading up
If
to
they
it,
can
I was just
control
like,
it,
yeah, I was just like, why? Like, why would you even try? But you know, it's a very experimental Azeroth. So
It just makes you
Well,
think of
also,
science in general.
yeah. And also, Illidan was gaslighting them, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
yeah,
Like, Illidan was like saying, oh, yeah, I'll give you some more power. I'll give you some more power. And he had the power source that they could have gone. Because if you go to Black Temple, that one boss is the arcane power source that they could have tapped into. However,
Fel.
he
Arcane.
kept that. No, Arcane. In
Which one?
that boss that had all the faces.
Oh,
Like,
Yeah.
he has, like,
yes.
a happy face, a drama,
And
comedy,
it drops
all of that.
those fragments of desire and things.
Yeah. So that was the power source they could have tapped into, but instead he, like, was gaslighting them the whole time.
The Reliquary
and
of
he had his own-
Souls.
Yes.
that one. Yeah, that guy. So it's actually relevant now with Shadowlands because he had, like, an anima source, let's say, in the basement there of the Black Temple that they could have, like, tapped into and gotten enough power. So he led them the wrong way, and the thing is, this leads right into that short story.
What short story is that, Uthos?
But let's go into, like, the end of BC because that's kind
Yeah.
of important. That's
So-
let's drop that real quick. Yeah.
So Kalthus, he became twisted due to his reliance on the Fel. He had allied himself with Illidan in Lady Vash. Illidan and Stormrage. Kalthus came under, unbeknownst to Illidan though, Kalthus came under the sway of the Legion's commander, killed Jaden. The prince ultimately returned to Quel'Thalas, seeking to usher his new master into Azeroth through the defiled Sunwell, though he was killed for his treachery before his cataclysmic ambitions could be fulfilled. The Draenei prophet Velen then used the essence of a darkened Naru to restore the Sunwell as a font of both arcane and holy energy.
I actually ran this yesterday.
Yeah, it was
I wanted
quite
to
the
get-
moment.
I wanted to get the bow. It didn't
Inspi-
drop.
It never does. Inspired by the Sunwell's rebirth, the Blood Elves have since entered into a shining new era in their ancient race's history. Although some elves remain hesitant to abandon their dependence on arcane magic, others have embraced change for the betterment of Quel'Thalas. Despite the numerous tragedies of their past, the Blood Elves continue to stand strong and endure, tenaciously striving to restore their beloved nation's past glory, and also are proud members of the Horde.
Well, they joined the Horde. It's important to note.
And we're done.
It's
And we're
important
done.
to
There we
note
go.
they joined the Horde because of the relationship that they had. They had a very, if you do the Blood Elf heritage armor, they had a very strong relationship with Sylvanas.
Yeah.
And Sylvanas was a leader. It wasn't like she didn't have, like, a voice in their culture and community. So they had her to thank for bringing them into the Horde because she tried to join the Alliance. Trust me, she sent envoys of the Forsaken to the Alliance, and
Yeah, that's right.
were all killed. So she only found a home with the Horde, and as a result, the Blood Elves were able to do that with her. So if you do
Because
the
the
whole Blood
Horde's
Elf
better.
starting
Because
zone,
the Horde's not much more accepting. You know?
and I was doing this last night. If you do the whole Horde, the Blood Elf starting zone, that all takes place before they join the Horde, and
Yeah.
they join the Horde at the end of that starting zone. So let's go into the short story that Madeline Rue wrote, Moment in Verse. That was an interesting short story, not so much because of the Lorthamar and Thalisteria action there, because They definitely had something. But anyway, they were in a poetry reading. They got together to read poetry together because that's, as we know from Shadows Rising, that's his wow. He needs to write poetry all the time.
Yeah.
And
So cute.
he wrote the poem The Adder. And The Adder is about Kael'thas's betrayal, but it's also about Sylvanas' betrayal. And the fact that he keeps falling for being betrayed by his leaders.
Yeah. The adder,
And
like he says, it's not a very venomous snake, but it attacks when you're at its weakest, when you're deep in sorrow. So,
right,
like, despite like everything he had gone through, losing most of his population, he got bit with that bite,
with
the adder from
with
Kelthus.
Kael'thas.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was their lowest point, and he led them astray. So I put Theron's pain is not because the Legion corrupting Kael. He so clearly identifies with the High Elves as his people at that point. He speaks about Kael's betrayal as the bite from the snake at their weakest point, the moment they became Blood Elves, whilst alienating the High Elves who had other means and did not need to resort to siphoning mana. So that's the other thing you have to realize. The High Elves who, when Illidan showed Kael how to siphon mana from living creatures, the High Elves were like, "Oh no, we're not going to do that. That's just a too far for us to do." But those are like, okay, so compare those to like vegans who have professional chefs, because those High Elves all had other sources. They had the artifacts in Dalaran to be able to siphon. They had Draenei artifacts on Draenor. And so they all had means to get their mana from not having to do that. Whereas the Blood Elves had no other choice. They had to siphon from living creatures or they would die. And so at that point, Kael gave the order for Theron to exile all of the High Elves that were not willing to siphon mana from living creatures. So they
I wouldn't want to siphon mana from living creatures.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it sounds messed up, but if you aren't going to do what we want our culture to do, then you're exiled.
It makes me the intro. What is it? The trailer. The intro for BC, where you've got that blood elf with the mana worm, and she's like,
right.
Hi, little pet," and then it just goes into oblivion, and she's there holding it, and you're like, "Fucking hell!"
Yeah.
Jeez,
it was awesome. That was awesome.
So in the thing,
no, you're not.
So he
just
felt
a mana worm.
He felt like that in the poem, he looked like a king at first because he was never the king of the High Elves. He only looked like it.
Yeah.
Because he was the king of the Blood Elves. But his anger was with himself, following his prince blindly, knowing that he would learn that without the support of the Blood Elves, they would fall prey to attacks from the Horde. And he didn't realize that that's what ended up happening with the High Elves that he exiled. But the actual betrayal was twofold, because he betrayed his own people and Kael'thas betrayed him. Kael'thas led them down the path of damnation. Remember, it was Kael that brought the Naru and stole the Naru ships. And he brought the Naru into Silvermoon, and it was Ramath and under Theron's control that allowed that Naru to be tortured and siphoned throughout all of BC, and would use the Fel to quickly rebuild their fallen city. And the second betrayal was leaving the High Elves with no support, which they had to go back, forcing them to go back into the Alliance. Furthermore, that was his fault. He was the one that gave that took that order from Lorthamar, from
Kael'thas,
and he exiled those people out, and they were forced to join the alliance to get
Yeah.
support. So that he had himself to blame for that, for both those betrayals. And furthermore, I think he was trying to open the door to reconciliation with the High Elves that he had done harm to, the same harm that his prince did to him, but only the ones that don't choose to follow the void. So if you're a High Elf and you choose to follow the void, Theron doesn't really want to have anything to do with you. But if you want to follow the light, then he is 100% feeling bad for the choices that he made. For me, reading into this poem, that's what he, to me, that's what he feels by what he wrote. And then he is willing to open the door to any High Elves that want to follow the light again, to come back home. And I sense that this is the opinion shared by the leading class of Blood Elves as well. Liadrin has no problem working with anyone at all who chooses to follow the path of the light, including the Draenei, and she feels a blood debt to the Draenei because they saved their people, as well as her admitted positive feelings towards them and any race that wants to follow the light. And we see this with the Zandalari, who choose to follow the light. Liadrin is very keen on helping the prelates of Razan, who still wield power, understand that they're really wielding the holy light. And we'll talk about that when we talk about unique class race class combinations. But also the Tauren paladins, if they're willing to understand that they're following the light, she's willing to teach them. So anybody who wants to follow the light, she is all for. So
big fan of Lady Liadrin. She's cool.
Yeah, big fan of her.
Yeah, she's cool.
I love her in all of her short
She loves the Horde too.
She does.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah. I have I had the Warlock that I race changed, and I also have a Blood Elf Paladin at max level. And that's my Horde. I've disappeared.
Lady Vash is pretty badass. Or so, Lady Liadrin. Sorry, I saw the Naga stuck in my head.
I was like, excuse me?
Lady Liadrin.
She will be badass. You'll
pretty
see
badass.
Her come up. Lady Vash has a role in the next expansion. That's going to be fun.
Yeah. She's pretty cool too.
So,
but not as cool
she is
as
cool.
Liadrin.
She is cool. But Liadrin's dope.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Okay.
With the Shadowlands, we see the High Elves, specifically the ones in the Silver Covenant, to be allowed to go back in, because those are the ones that follow the light devoutly. That's the only reason I mentioned them specifically. But they'll be allowed back into the High Elf Society, and any ranger that follows the light, they'll be able to follow.
Woo! Yeah.
Go back to join the Blood Elves. Now,
and that's tempting me. What
and
do?
Thalysra's poem.
Do it.
Thalysra's poem is about her and Lorthamar kicking boots, but it's also about the Nightborn joining the Horde. And it could be taken both ways. It could be taken as her and Lorthamar getting busy, and how,
I didn't see it as getting busy. I just saw it as her
becoming a couple.
Well, yeah, but I think that the reason that she wanted him to come to actually take part in this reading and hear her say that in front of all of her people was meant to, evoke some kind of emotion within Lorthamar. And when he was like, nothing, and he's like, I'm fine, I think that hurt her. Or not hurt her, but
it bothered her.
Yeah.
It bothered her because she wanted more than he was willing to give her.
Yeah.
Well, he was still he kept saying that, like, it's a wound that just won't heal. It's something, the poison's there. It takes longer with poison. And she put it as like, well, you keep opening it up. You're the only one that keeps diving into it. I've faced just as much. And all I want now is this, like, in this moment, it's just us. It's what we have with each other. That's how I pick up the poem. Like,
yeah,
they're all
like,
they're all under the same heart.
Moment. Right.
They're one heart. They're all part of the cosmos. Like, they can, there's
the thing is that she's more like live in the moment and stop like looking back at your past.
Just
Yeah.
chill,
He's like,
dude.
I haven't reconciled with my past. I haven't reconciled with everything that I've gone through, and it keeps happening again and again, and that's why he hasn't reconciled with it.
Yeah.
It's not so much with it happened with Kael'thas, that's fine, and I made horrible decisions while I was under him, but I let it happen
Oh,
again
why?
with Sylvanas,
Yeah.
and
Sorry.
I allowed it to happen again, and that's what made him like think it reopened the old wounds.
I don't
She's
think
like,
it's as
let it go.
yeah. I think I don't think he necessarily thinks of it as strongly as he does with Sylvanas, because no one really saw it with Sylvanas. Everyone was under that with Sylvanas.
Mhm.
I think Sylvanas opened that wound towards Kael'thas, though. I don't think he was necessarily wrapped around Sylvanas as much, but I think it definitely reminded him. It definitely reopened that wound. Like, not that he's not reopening it himself, but it definitely, bolstered that thought of Kael'thas. I think, he just started thinking more and more on that. Because I don't think he necessarily blames himself for the actions Sylvanas has done. And I don't think he necessarily blames himself for the actions Garrosh has done. Because both times he's answered the call to rise against them.
And that happened also behind his back with Garrosh. It was two people that did it without him knowing, and he was very against them doing that, but he had to deal with it when it happened. But he was in talks with going back to the Alliance when they
slaughtered by
people. Yeah. And then that's when Jaina went all crazy and did what she did. But with Shadowlands, we're going to be seeing high elf customizations for both the Alliance and the Horde joining the ranks of the Blood Elves and the Void Elves, respectively.
That's gonna be fun to see.
However, that implies that they will reproduce the event somehow and get close to reproducing something similar to it with the High Elf remnants in the Alliance. This makes sense to me because the High Elves aren't a thing anymore. I know people want the High Elves to be a thing, but they're really not a thing. They are broken people, the remnants of the remnants of a broken people. And they really don't have a place in society anymore unless they've gone to the Void or the Light, respectively. And I don't see any problem with it. Now, in Shadowlands, we will get some new customization options for the human, the dwarves, the gnomes, the blood elves, and the void elves. All will have retroactive continuity with the skin tones. So, and then I think this is the right move to make it retroactive continuity and not like say, oh, these dark skinned people are coming in. Like, no, they were always there. They were always there, and that's just the way it is. Because it's a short-sightedness on the part of Blizzard to not include those skin tones in already. Like they should have been in. They should have always have been there. And I get it, and I'm 100% for this. The blue eyes, like, who cares? But people care.
People, lots of people care.
I'm just glad that
lots of people care, but I mean, I get it. Now it solidifies. And now the way Blizzard phrased it was they wanted, if you've identified as a high elf, that you were supposed to be a blood elf for the Horde. Now, people were not happy with that. And in doing this, they had no intentions of ever giving the Void Elves pink skin tones. They never had that intention in mind.
Yeah.
But they listened to the fan base, and they actually put that in, especially when they were bringing in the darker skin tones anyway, that it didn't make sense for the Void Elves to not have that ability. And I think that was a very good move. That was a very good change of mind that they had. And in fact, that gives the Void Elves much more of a rich history, because the Void Elves didn't have a history. They had we're a sect. We're like a cult from the Blood Elves that
They
that
still
does
are a
its own
cult,
thing.
but we'll leave
Right,
it at that.
but now they have all of the High Elves that
Yeah.
came in, and so now they have their own history, and the High Elves actually mean something now because now they are Void Elves,
Yeah.
and it matters again. And so for all the people that won this battle, I congratulate you. I give you all the props because you were the ones that made this happen, and Blizzard listened to you and they actually care. And
Sometimes.
I'm glad. Yeah, no, well,
No,
I
just
feel
kidding.
like that's a win. That's a win in my opinion.
Yeah.
That Blizzard listened to the fan base, and like they did the same thing with the Death Knights. Remember, they weren't planning on having Death Knights be allied races. Remember that?
Yeah.
That was like
Yeah.
that was not an appetite to do that. And I think that they did a good job with the allowing them in and making them part of both the Alliance and the Horde under Bolvar, which it's its own thing, but at least the 4th generation Death Knights now are part of the Alliance and the Horde respectively. That's great.
Agreed.
Do you have anything else to add, Rory?
No, I think that was well put. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't want the Alliance to get what they want, like with the pink elves, but I
The
mean,
pink elves.
it's all fair game, and
I love it because that actually, like, as a priest, I totally understand. Like, I totally get the whole light and shadow thing, and I get why they would have that difference. And especially in the next expansion, it seems like, I mean, maybe I'm the only one catching on, but it seems to me that they're definitely going light versus void in the next expansion.
Yeah.
I don't know that I have no inside knowledge nor any it's just I don't think you need to be a psychic or have any sort of divinity to figure out that that's the direction they're going for the next expansion. They've set everything
seems
up.
heavily suggested, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And now that the fact that the most popular race is on both factions, and the only difference is light versus void.
Yeah.
Is a very clear cut to me where this is going.
Especially with the recent implications, as we already stated, of light being a bit rapey and bad.
Well, the dark side of the light and the light side of the dark is interesting because I think they're gonna definitely go full force into that. Now the orcs have their feelings on the Lightborn and the Lightforged because they don't like what Yrel did, and I can't blame them.
Okay.
Actually, because we talked about that in the Megar thing. They only practice shadow magic. They don't practice any other kind. So when you see the shadow priests on the Horde orcs, those are just shadow priests. Those aren't holy priests.
But they can be holy and disciplined spec, right?
That's true. They can learn that discipline spec isn't a real thing, for them. That's for Pandarans. Each spec has its own lore connotations.
We can get into that one of these days, perhaps.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think we've wrapped up this one pretty well. We'll go into customizations and certain race class patterns, either already in game or coming in the future. Speculation, whatever you want to hear.
Love speculation.
Yeah.
Give me more speculation.
So next episode, we're going to talk about the unique race class combinations and further
Rory
customization options.
I said that.
Rory just said that.
100%.
Yes.
But we're all on board with that, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Next episode, we're going to go over the unique class race customizations.
Next time on Aspects of Lore, we're going to take a look at unique race class.
Well, how about I also like the possible speculations on the race. You're going to include that too? That's going to be a really long episode.
We got it.
Okay.
We'll do it. So next time,
All right.
On the Aspects
we'll
of
be
Lore.
looking at Vol'jin Shadows of the Horde.
No. Did we get the poll for that, or are you going to put another poll to just compare and contrast?
We got the answer to the poll. It's Rise of the
It
Horde.
was.
Yeah,
Rise of the Horde.
It is Rise of- that's-
Vol'jin's
You
really
are
good too.
aware. You are aware that if we do Rise of the Horde, that opens us up to the trilogy: Rise of the Horde, The Last Guardian, and Lord of the Clans, right?
We, as a podcast, put that out into our community, and this is the response that we received. So we must
Okay.
give the fans what they want.
Okay.
Our
Well, that works too,
4
because
fans.
Rise of the Horde, our 5 fans. Rise of the Horde is very Horde centric. The Last Guardian is very for the Alliance, and then Lord of the Clans is also Horde centric. And then we could go into War of the Ancients after that, and that's all Alliance all the time. So everybody's happy, because I know Rich is like, if we don't get some Alliance love,
Oh, I don't care.
I will be upset.
I just don't want to be an Orgrimmar.
Ugh.
That's it.
Well,
That's
yeah,
the
no.
only thing. I just don't want to be there. Anywhere else, I'm totally fine. Silvermoon, amazing. Suramar, great.
I just think Horde has
Silvermoon
better.
needs to be updated.
I even like High Mountain.
Yeah.
Not High Mountain. Thunder. Yeah, High Mountain. No.
Yeah.
Thunder Bluff.
Thunder Bluff. Thank you. Yeah, I like Thunder Bluff. Just Orgrimmar. Anyway, thanks for
I hate
listening to the
Thunderblood.
You're
Aspects of
racist.
Lore podcast. If you want to suggest a show topic to us, just drop an email across to aspectsoflore@gmail.com. All of our links are going to be in the description below on the YouTube video and on Spotify, Apple, etc. Please say that you like us, follow us, subscribe, and rate us 5 stars. And we will see you next time. Bye. You're not going to say bye? Okay, I'll say bye and then just stop it.